Live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the Double D Podcast, breaking down the news of the week and whatever else is on our mind with a little bit of wrestling mixed in for taste, sort of like cinnamon. So grab some Doritos and a Diet Coke, then sit back and relax because it's time for the Double D with your host and self-proclaimed pop culture experts, Damian Nelson and David Hero.
Welcome, everybody, to the Double D Podcast. Damian Nelson and David Hero coming here from the PWR studios. And you know what? I know that we are less important, at least I know you are, David Hero, than our guest who is joining us, our first guest on the Double D Podcast, Al Snow. Welcome.
Hello there. I'm always excited to be a part of anything that's Double D.
Linda's actually not here today. She had another obligation. I think she might be tanning.
Oh, that only takes 6 minutes in the tanning bed.
All you need is 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
You know, Al, thank you for being here in Milwaukee. You were obviously this past weekend doing a big appearance at a station event down at Southridge Mall. But before that, last Saturday night, we were in DeKalb, Illinois at a TNA live event, a house show, if you will, for those of you in the know in the business. And we've been to, Dave, you and I have been to many a TNA show, been to television shows. We've been
It's
to
always an
house
adventure to
shows.
get there, too.
It is never easy because you're usually going to some town that you have to look up 4 times to remember the name of it. But be that as it may, I will say this, and not just because you're sitting here, Al, but it was a fantastic house show. It was a fantastic show overall. Show was just about 2 hours long, just under. I think there were 6, maybe 7 matches. Brief intermission just to set up the cage. Everything had a purpose. And there were talents that were not on the show that I didn't even notice. Like Kurt Angle wasn't there. Abyss wasn't there. Who else wasn't?
AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy.
Well, I mean, obviously they weren't going to be there. But just a good show. So congratulations on that. But the highlights of the show to me, the talents that I noticed more so than any other, were the Bromans, Robbie E., Mr. Spectacular, EC3, Ethan Carter III. Magnus was great as usual. Samoa Joe, tremendous as usual. Gail Kim, Velvet Sky, fantastic. You were in charge of that show. You were in charge of that house show. You were the man, if you will. You put it together. How did we get to the point of who the talents were on the show and the matches that there were going to be and the fact that it was such a tight show, if you will, for the fans that were in town? By the way, I read online that there were only 200 people there.
Yeah, which was not the case. There were more like 754.
Oh, because it's interesting. A lot of these websites, they ask people to send in their reports, from the show, and then they use their attendance figures as
It's clear
the
to
attendance
see
figures.
that, unfortunately, in the United States, math is becoming a failing subject because, if you could learn to count correctly, you could easily ascertain that there were over 200 people and that there were far greater number. And you may not actually hit the actual number without knowing the sales numbers like I do, but 754 is a dramatic difference from 200.
Isn't that the narrative people have on TNA, though? People expect there to be low numbers.
They
People
want
expect.
there to be-
They want,
they want
exactly.
low numbers.
And that's what ends up getting reported.
But let me put this into perspective for people. And this is backed by an expert that used to work for WWE that came in and did a study on the house shows and attendance and et cetera. And we are drawing basically the exact number we should be drawing based on the rating that we're doing on TV. They're no different than WWE is drawing between 3,000 and 4,000 people right now based on their numbers that they're doing on TV. But you have to stop with the comparison between WWE and TNA. That's like comparing apples and oranges. WWE has been around for decades, literally decades. Vince's great-grandfather was running that. Vince's grandfather, his father, now Vince. That's years of experience and time to establish WWE as not just a brand, but an iconic brand, almost like Band-Aid or Kleenex or Harley Davidson. When you think that's what describes wrestling.
Raw's been around for decades.
Correct.
Just Raw itself.
So you can't compare TNA that's been around for a decade to WWE that's been around for multiple decades. It's asinine, and yet they continue to do it. Fans say, WWE this and TNA that. Well, you can't. TNA is really just at the base, the bottom of the tree. They're just starting to grow, and they draw in line with what they produce on their ratings. And as the ratings go up or increase, hopefully, so will the attendance.
Which they have been the last few weeks.
Yes.
You talk about the comparison to WWE. A lot of people make that comparison, which, as you said, is unfair. We've made that point as well because it's two entirely different entities. You've got a billion-dollar company and another company that
It's a startup.
is still a startup, exactly.
Right.
But TNA is seemingly, as of late, and congratulations on those shows over in the UK, by the way. They've been.
Oh, they were awesome.
It's amazing what happens when you have an invested audience that wants to be there and that has been craving the product for a while. But they are, at least it seems, TNA is focusing on not being WWE, but being TNA.
I agree. And they are starting to develop and create their own stars finally. And that's what they've needed to do for ages, is to take completely new talent and give them the opportunity to develop and create and become a persona that will be an attraction.
And that's seemingly been the difference over the last few weeks. You look at some of the names I mentioned earlier, the recently endorsed Rockstar Spud as well, and even Dixie Carter. And I got to say that initially I was not on board. I'm like, ooh, yeah, this is a bit of a challenge. But as of late, it all fits. And it's like last year with the Aces and Eights storyline. That was like a 6-8 month thing.
Yeah.
That along the way, you wondered a lot of times, like, okay, Devon's in this, Taz is in what's
That was because there were unplanned changes
Right.
that had to occur. You got to understand that booking or writing these storylines, however you want to call it, is like putting together a picture puzzle. So you start out with a vague idea, but you don't have any edge pieces and you don't have a lid to establish what it is you really want. But you just know you want to make, like, a picture of a horse. Well, Aces and Eights was a prime example that you had the pieces to make a picture of a horse, but as time went on, pieces started changing, falling out. Different circumstances created this, created that, to where now we ended up with a pirate ship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It literally, the smallest detail will alter the entire picture. And that's the challenge that a lot of people don't see. And then they critique and they, oh, well, that doesn't make any, well, you're right, it doesn't. But it was what we had to do with what you had at the time to continue to try to make a puzzle picture instead of just scrapping the whole thing and throwing it in a box.
But I wouldn't knock it because it all was summarized so well in a video piece that was done, I think, somewhere around Bound for Glory, where there was stuff that happened that you didn't even notice. And it was put together. It was like 3 or 4 minute piece, and I'm watching this, I'm like, this is brilliant.
It all pieced together.
It all made sense. Yeah. And that's what's great, and that's what doesn't happen enough in wrestling. And that's what I see now in TNA.
And I apologize, but you have to understand that the real good storytelling is when you tell a story and you drop a hint psychologically 6 months before you're going to do it, so that when you do it, the audience goes, I knew it. He's so-and-so. But nobody ever remembers that little hint that you dropped 6 months ago, that you planted and over 6 months grew, so that when the thing happened, nobody went, huh? What? And if people were to watch it and pay attention, that at no time point, it had its bumps and such, but at no point in time during that Aces and Eights thing did you ever go, huh? What? I don't get this. You went, I knew, such and such, this, that, so that the twists and turns didn't confuse the audience but took them along for a ride.
David, you always say that in professional wrestling, the answer or the future is right in front of us.
It's always been right.
It's sitting right there, either by what's being said or what's being done or what the matches are or who's getting more time or less time than others. Is that true, Al? Are you guys really putting the answer generally in front of our faces as to where the things are going as far as the stories go?
No, because it's a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
So, we're putting the answer in front of you, but then it's now relying on the talent. I want to have Dave Hero be the heavyweight champion 6 months from now. But now I'm relying on Dave Hero to wrestle like he could be a heavyweight champion for 6 months before we ever get to the point to where he ever wrestles.
And God forbid be healthy 6 months down the road as well.
Yeah, I mean, but what if he goes out there and he just wants to have a good match? Well, now I'm going to give him a chance. I'm going to give him another chance. I'm going to give him another chance. Well, now it doesn't work. You know what I mean? So what I was hoping to do 6 months from now, I can't do because he's not going to.
How often does that happen?
A lot of times. And a lot of times the talent themselves don't even understand it, that that's what they're doing. It's that they're self-sabotaging they're cutting their own throats. They now point the finger. Oh, they didn't want me to get over. They didn't want, they did this, they did that. When it was like you had the chance, you had the opportunity. They don't realize it's their business, and once they walk through the curtain, that it is totally 100% on them. There's nothing that can be done to help them, and there's nothing that can be done to hinder them. They have to stop thinking in that sectionalized and formulaic fashion and start thinking in, I've got to take this opportunity to present myself as I could be the next heavyweight champion. Even if he loses, set that spark, set that wheel in motion so that 6 months from now, somebody in the back goes, hey, for a piece for the puzzle, we could use this guy now.
It sounds almost like you're getting back into that 7 deadly step territory.
I hate that 7 deadly steps.
You hate it?
Desperately hate it.
A couple of years ago on our ESPN radio show, you told us the 7 deadly steps, and you've got pretty passionate while you were explaining them to me.
I did. I don't think I would get. I may. I try to continue. I try to contain it.
Oh, be as passionate as you want to be. It just makes for a better Double D.
It just drives my frustration. That's all. That's all. The fact that the business is slowly dying, being killed by the cancer that is the wrestlers themselves.
Do share. Tell us. What are those 7 steps?
The 7 Deadly Step match was a match that originally was only about 4 steps, and it was created years ago in the wrestling business. And the reason that it was created was a necessity was because years ago, when you would break in the wrestling business, you never ever stepped in the ring unless you stepped in the ring with someone that had significantly more experience. So even if you'd been wrestling for 7 or 8 years, you would never actually go out there with another guy that only had 5 or 6 or 7.
So you never should have been in the ring with Kevin Thorne.
Oh, you booked me in the match, so
It
you
was-
should
well-
have booked me in the match.
Yeah, good. Responsibility comes back on you. That was a bad comment. Boomerang right back
See
on
how
you.
he spins everything around?
Yeah, that spun right on you, too.
Exactly. Terrible.
So if you were put in there with another guy that had limited experience like yourself, you were, not
Limited.
you, but like 2
Yeah.
guys would have very little experience. It was they were so protective of the business because it only takes one guy to kill business.
Yeah.
So they would say, listen, guys, we're going to keep this as simple as possible. At the babyface, you're going to shine. You're going to out wrestle the heel. I need you to make it look like you're going to put the heel in a position to where he might possibly lose. Heel, you're now going to cheat. You're going to cut him off the heat spot, and now you're going to go and try to do everything you can to beat him, and then let the babyface make a comeback and go home. It was that simple, formulaic match that has now been, that's the way you do every match.
Right.
Now, don't misunderstand. All these 7 ridiculous steps happen, but they happen a million different ways. It's the creativity and the timing that, as to when they happen, as to why they happen, as to why they work and why they wouldn't work, are what make wrestling. It's kind of anybody can be a painter. Everybody can paint a house,
Yeah.
but not everybody can be an artist. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Everybody can be a professional wrestler. And if you don't believe me, you can watch Hulk Hogan's Championship Wrestling. When literally, and it's not a joke.
Yeah.
They literally taught this formula to middle-aged former celebrity housewives who are now doing this match. So if this is the match you want to do, realize that a housewife could do this match. So what makes you special, and why should I pay
Right.
you instead of the housewife?
Yeah.
Because she's going to do your same match. Now, let's keep in mind, too, your real job is to be an attraction, is to be able to sell tickets to stand out from everyone else. Now, how are you going to stand out when you're doing the same match that 3 other matches did on the card already? You're not. And if you're the audience, why are you going to pay to see 7 matches that are all exactly alike, feel alike, move alike? You just change the people that participate in them.
That's what you say about Ring of Honor, Dave.
Well, Ring of Honor, that's what it is. You got to shoot somebody in the head to beat them.
So, it's a negative in that fashion. It is the beauty, the art of professional wrestling is telling a story physically, and the understanding that you can make the audience believe, and they want to believe anything, if it's as long as it's based within the concepts of trying to win and not lose, and doesn't go out of your parameters of who you are as a character and what you stand for. That's it. And it becomes that simple. but it's gotten to this point of, where that formula has become so prevalent that I've seen it all over the world. And it does not work. And the reason it doesn't work, are you okay?
We're great.
Okay. The reason it does not work is very simple. Psychologically, a babyface's job is to do one thing and one thing alone, and that is to get over. Now, what does the term get over mean?
Pay attention to this, Damien.
The term get over
I'm paying attention.
I'm just making sure.
means for the babyface to become the person that everybody wants to live vicariously through. B, emulate. When as a wrestling fan, I'm sure there were wrestlers that you wanted to wear their T-shirts, you wanted to say their catchphrases. If you imagined yourself wrestling, you wrestled just like they did. That's getting over. You're living vicariously through the wrestler. Mm-hmm. It's probably the most important thing that has to happen. If not, then we can't get any heat. Okay? Heat is not offense in the match. Heat's a want, a need, a desire. Think of it like this. If we were to go outside right now, we were seeing somebody set fire to your car, Damien, okay? Or setting fire to a car in the parking lot. Don't know whose it is. Our reaction would be probably call 911. Mm-hmm. Why? Not your car. Don't care. If we were to walk outside and see somebody setting fire to your car, you're probably going to react a little differently.
I would too, because I'm parked right next to him.
There you go. The two of you would run over and try to stop the guy from setting your car on fire, probably beat his ass.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Then call 911 and have him come and arrest him. Why? You have a personal stake. Mm-hmm. Do you understand?
You're bought in.
If we see somebody setting fire to your car with your family and your dog in it, what are you going to do? Stakes now rise. Yeah. You care more. You're going to take more
He doesn't care about his dog.
If we have a babyface in the ring who is not sufficiently gotten over, doesn't matter what we do to him. Doesn't matter how much we do.
Because nobody cares.
Nobody cares. If I'm the heel, my job, the sole job of a heel, is not to show that he can wrestle. The job of a heel is not to be credible. The job of a heel is to get the babyface over at all costs. Mm-hmm. Because if he doesn't get the babyface over, put together, they don't get heat. Okay? Yeah. Heat is not the offense, a spot in the match. It's a want, a need, a desire. If we take it back even further to the carnival days, you're running the carnival games. The only way you eat is if you get people to play the games. The better you eat, the fact that you have the people play the game longer. How? You use the gimmick. What's the gimmick? It's the big prize. Mm-hmm. What's the heat? The heat is in making the mark believe that he puts his money down again. His odds are greater that he will win the big prize. Yeah. That is heat. Yeah. Do we understand?
Yes.
Good. Because the talent don't. Heat is what drives meat in the seats. So,
meat in the seats.
We don't get the babyface over. Heel don't get heat. We don't draw. But the heel has to get the babyface over. The babyface has to get over. Otherwise, heel does anything to the babyface. We don't get heat. Mm-hmm. So that has the ultimate job of the babyface and of the heel. Let's start with step one of our 7 deadly sins. That's where the babyface is going to outshine the heel. He's going to do 3 or 4 or 5 spots, doesn't matter the number, where he's just simply going to out-wrestle the heel. Why is that a problem? That's a problem because our number one thing, remember back to when you were working the carnival games, was to work the gimmick. Right. What's the gimmick of every wrestling match? That you're trying to win. Not just simply out-wrestle your opponent, but try to put him in a position of loss. If you put your heel in a position of loss, he has a greater motivation to do absolutely anything he needs to do as long as the referee doesn't catch him to reverse that situation. But we're not going to put him in a position of loss. We're just going to out-wrestle him. And we're going to shine because we're going to show that we're a better wrestler than the heel is. Right? Yeah. We're not going to try to get over. We're just going to shine. That's problem one. Problem two is step two. Step two is now the heat spot. That's where the heel will now do something bigger, stronger, and more aggressive, and in one move, knock the shit out of the babyface. And won't cheat to do it. Right. Does he?
No, he doesn't.
Heads up, knocks the babyface on his ass. Let me ask something. Who would you rather be in the ring right now? Would you rather be the guy that just did a bunch of fancy stuff and didn't amount to anything, or the guy that just in one move knocked the shit out of the other guy?
Like in one move.
Really? Well, now the heel's become the babyface.
Yeah.
He's now getting over.
Right.
Step 3. Step 3 is where we're going to get our heat. Not the want, the need. It's where we're going to get our shit in. That's where the heel is now going to spend the next 5 to 6, 7 minutes getting their stuff in. It's going to be far cooler, far more kick-ass, far more aggressive, and far more tougher looking than anything that babyface did on his shine. And at no time is he ever really going to try to beat the babyface. Mm-hmm. So we're still not working the gimmick. He's just getting his shit in. Mm-hmm. Who do we want to be even more now? Do you want to be the heel who in one move kicked the shit out of the other guy and is now proceeding to stomp a mud hole in him? Or do you want to be that waste of a dish rag that's laying on the mat, just laying there selling like he thinks he's selling, like a dead fish?
The heel.
He's the babyface even more. Mm-hmm. What are we still not getting? Heat. Guess we don't care if we sell tickets. As long as we get a 5-star rating, that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm. From a 13-year-old kid.
Let's move on. Oh, he tweeted me the other day and said was mad and claimed that it was a bullshit story and that I've been dragging his name through the mud. What he doesn't realize is I've made him significant and relevant and helped him illustrate a point in the wrestling business that wouldn't have existed if it weren't for him. What a shock, he remembers the story differently. Who cares? What's he going to do? Beat me up? Go right ahead. It ain't the first time. So let's move on to step 4. That's the hope spot. For me, it's I hope they go home. They're not going to. They have 3 more steps. That's where the babyface will now generate some kind of offense that will bear no fruit, and the heel will, again, straight up, not cheat, do anything backhanded, cut the heel babyface right off. Thus reinforcing, again, who do we want to be?
The heel?
Yeah, who wants to be this guy? He's horrible.
But he was cool at the beginning of the match.
He wasn't even cool. All he did was he did a bunch of fancy moves that weren't even nearly as kick-ass or as bad as the thing that, and let's really get into it. Then most baby faces will do a bunch of big stuff that now it's like, why are we waiting on around for you to do the comeback? You've just basically kicked the heel's ass, so why are we waiting to see you kick it at the end? Mm-hmm. This is all pointless. There's no want, no need, no desire. But we'll just get our stuff in. It'll be good.
A great conversation with Al Snow on the Double D podcast, the only way to listen to the rest of this great podcast featuring the 7 deadly steps of a professional wrestling match is to download the Double D. You can get it on your iTunes device. You can get it on Android. You can also get it online at pwrshow.com. Just go to pwrshow.com, click on the Double D podcast link right up at the top of the page, and it'll give you the opportunity to download the podcast. Hear the rest of the 7 deadly steps. It gets much more interesting and much more heated from Al Snow on the Double D podcast, which is free, absolutely free. Subscribe on iTunes. Get it on Google Play for your Android devices and listen online at pwrshow.com.